You're traveling through another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land of imagination. Next stop, the Hole of the Rabbit.
At Spanish Settlement. By Alison Hay, 1947, in the Sydney Morning Herald. The officers of a naval survey sloop who recently returned from a cruise told a story of an unidentified wreck off the Queensland coast near Rockhampton. It is uncertain whether this wreck dates back to early times, for about 100 feet of the hull was visible, presumably 50 feet being buried in sand. The absence of a copper sheathing, however, suggests that the wreck is an old one. This find revives an interesting controversy over which much research and ink were expended during the first 2 decades of this century. One school claimed that a Spanish settlement had been formed at Port Curtis, Gladstone, in pre-Cook times. Distinguished protagonists of this theory included Cardinal Moran, Lawrence Hargrave, the pioneer aviator, and E.J. Brady, of Australia Unlimited fame. In opposition were those accurate historians, Henry Selkirk and J.H. Watson, and the Royal Geographical Society of London, at that time under the presidency of Admiral Sir Clements Markham, was even roped in to discount the Spanish theory. Not sufficient evidence to prove a Spanish settlement had existed, was the Society's finding. The anti-Spanish settlement school based their assumption on the fact that Flinders, who had visited Port Curtis in 1802, had made no mention either of a visible wreck or of signs of former European occupation. Neither, they held, did surveyor McCabe, who surveyed the area, pending settlement, in 1847, nor Colonel Barney, who was in charge of the first settlers there in 1853. Cardinal Moran, on the other hand, was not only a great linguist, but he also had ready access to archives unavailable to ordinary investigators. In the opening chapter of his History of the Catholic Church in Australasia, he expressed his belief in the existence of a former Spanish settlement at Port Curtis, and gave as his reason de Quiros's description of the port at which he halted. This, said the Cardinal, tallied geographically with Port Curtis and not with the ports of the Pacific Islands which may have been included in the voyage. In corroboration of this theory, the older residents of Port Curtis recounted stones of a well lined with sawn timber unknown in the locality, presumably teak. There was a great stone slab of foreign origin, believed to be an altar stone, evidence of big-scale clearing of timber, and a carved face on the cliffs at Auckland Point with a date believed to be 1600, which was certainly not the work of Aboriginal stone carvers. Not such conclusive evidence was the brass cannon found at South Trees Point, and inscribed, Santa Barbara. Spanish guns were often taken as trophies by British ships. Hargrave's reputation as a scientist and investigator is such that he cannot be judged as an acceptor of idle and unfounded theories. Informed by the Commonwealth archivist that Surveyor McCabe's report contained no mention of a wrecked ship off the coast at Port Curtis, Hargrave made a search of the map himself and discovered a single word which justified his belief. This was the word, ship, in the exact position in which the wreck had been described. The Spanish theory has evidently been handed down, and Gladstonians cling to it, for they pointed to the well with pride when the Marine Survey Party brought to them the story of their finding of a wreck. But They could not produce the carved face on the cliff. It had been blasted away many years ago by a vandal who wanted to make a swimming pool.